Hey guys, it's Miss Almond. So I wanted to do a video for you about cell communication. This one does also focus on the endocrine system, which we talked a little bit about when we did this in class together. But since this is the first part of your review, chapter number 7 this week in your review book, um, along with cell cycle, I just wanted to make sure that we had a chance to just go through this together briefly, because this is pretty important stuff, obviously, and of course has the potential to be on the AP exam. I guess we'll see. But first off, I want to remind you that tomorrow is Earth Day. So Aspen and I went this past weekend and picked up some trash on our road, and we plan to do that again tomorrow. And of course, we're always looking for ideas. If you find some other creative or fun way to acknowledge Earth Day, please let me know. I have a 4-year-old to keep busy. Help me out. Just kidding. But anyway, y'all know she's a creative little thing. So anything that you could think of that you guys are doing that you'd like to pass along, please let me know. We started a garden, got my husband to till us up a spot over the weekend. So we're not ready to plant anything just yet, but we are getting there. We got chickens over the weekend. I guess that could be another kind of Earth Day thing. I don't know. But we're not having to buy eggs and egg crates and all that stuff. So anyway, that's just a little bit that's going on in my world. But I hope you guys are doing good. Miss you guys. Really hope to see y'all soon. And I guess we'll just have to keep waiting on that to find out all the gist of it. If you haven't already, please make sure that you go in and do the check-in that I posted from on Monday. I did have an incorrect link posted at first, but it has been fixed. So if you try to do that early Monday morning, I fixed it yesterday afternoon at some point. Or I thought I did, and then I was reminded last night that I did not. So I did get it posted finally last night. So make sure that you go check that out and do that for me, so that I can keep up with, it's mostly about your AP testing plans, and to make sure that you're aware of the grading policies, and things like that. So of course, if you have questions, let me know. So anyway, all right, back to cell communication. So why do cells even need to communicate? There's a bunch of different reasons, obviously, but these are the ones that we are going to go through. So let's hop on in. Let me move my face out of the way. All right, so evolutionary ties of cell communication. You can find cell-to-cell communication in every biological system, everything from archaea, bacteria, all the way up to multicellular organisms. The basic chemical processes of communication are also shared through all the lines of descent. So there's, definite evolutionary ties here. So that would be one way that you could talk about if there were to be some kind of a question like this on the AP exam. If they were to talk about evolutionary ties, you're going to talk about as far back as you feel like you can go, basically. But anyway, so signal transduction is just one of those really good examples that if you can hammer down these concepts and these details, you could definitely really garner some points. So we have cell communication going on outside of the body, and we have cell communication going on inside of the body. Some outside or external types of cell communication are things like pheromones and quorum sensing. We'll get to those. And then inside the body, we have short and long distance. So these pheromones, basically it's chemicals that are released by an organism into their environment, and it helps them to communicate with others of the same species. If you've ever seen ants walking in a line, for example, they're not just following the leader, they are following a chemical signal, much like a hormone, but they're called pheromones. And so they can also warn of predators. Let's say that a bear goes and knocks a beehive out of a tree, and those bees start attacking. They're not just attacking because their house just fell, it's because their house fell and there's a pheromone release going on that's saying, hey, our hive's under attack. Everybody make it stop, so that maybe hopefully they could salvage something. But anyway, that's one way to think of it. Also, this example here, I couldn't get this particular video to work, but I found tons on YouTube, and I didn't like one any better than the other. So go check out YouTube and look at the man-made trail. It's very simple. It's an ink pen. I think we talked about a little bit about this in class before, but an ink pen on paper, it creates a pheromone or it has a pheromone in it that actually can communicate or be communicated by or with termites. So it's really neat. You should definitely go check that out. They basically sense that pheromone and they just follow the ink pen trail. It's pretty cool. And then we also have quorum sensing. So quorum sensing in bacteria is how the single cell bacteria are keeping up with their environment. It helps them to produce and release and detect hormone type molecules that are called autoinducers that are in their environment. And so they're detecting these from other bacteria that are similar to them, or maybe even not. It just depends. So what we see in this picture here, so here's our secretory bacteria, and we have this synthesizing, molecule here. It releases the quorum sensing molecule, and that is going to leave one bacteria, go out into the environment, and then another bacteria can receive it. And then it perceives it using its own quorum sensing receptor, and then that triggers a response within this receiving bacteria. In this particular example, it triggers the production of lycopene, which turns color, creates a color change. So pretty neat, but that's what quorum sensing is. It also helps them, it may just be about the numbers in some cases. They may just be keeping up with how many organisms are in the environment that are like them and are different from them. All right, so then if we think about inside the body, so as we're outside, these are going to be inside the body. We have short and we have long distance. So let's get into these examples. So a direct contact example, there we go. So a direct contact example that we have here is plant cells. So these plant cells are all connected. They have cell walls. They do not just have cell membranes, which we're going to be talking about in our next examples. But within these cell walls, they have these plasmodesmata right here. So these plasmodesmata are like the linkages between the cell walls of these cells. And so they're able to communicate directly with one another and passing signals through the plasmodesmata there. We also have short distance communication. So the short distance communication are things like neurotransmitters. We talked about those a good bit, like right before we got out. If I'm not mistaken, I may be mistaken. I don't know about you, but the days are all running together, right? But anyway, so these paracrine signals are going to diffuse out into the area or that particular part of the body, and it's going to affect the nearby cells. So in this case, this paracrine signaling that we have going on here, this is the signal molecules, and they are diffusing out to receptors. And so they're not being picked up. If you look at the shape, it's very much like enzymes, but it's these, signal molecules are going out to their receptors and are being picked up, and that is going to then trigger a response. If this were prostaglandins, then that would be when these signal molecules are picked up on these receptor proteins, it can trigger a fever or inflammation. So like if you ever had a cut and it gets all red and puffy, inflamed, it even feels hot, you know, usually if, let's say you've had a surgery or something, that's one of the big warning signs that the doctor tells you to call about, because that can be the start of a bad infection. But what that also does is it raises the temperature and can kill off a good bit of bacteria that's trying to take hold there. It can also intensify the sensations of pain as well when you have these prostaglandins that have picked up these signal molecules. Okay, so here's what that looks like. Just remember our synapses here. This is where we have synaptic signaling. So in the neuron here, the synapse is picking up the signal molecules. And then here in this neurosecretory cell, it is communicating directly with the blood vessel, and then the blood vessel is going to be sending that out to the nearby cells that are not in the blood, but in neighboring tissue. All right, then we have these autocrine signals. These autocrine, or autocrine, however you hear that is fine. But these autocrine signals are going to affect the same cells that are going to release them. So if that sounds a little confusing, if we look at this here, we have this molecule releasing signal molecules that bond onto itself and creates a response. So auto means same. So the same cells that are releasing them are also being affected by them. Interleukin 1 is an example of that, and monocytes produce these. What a monocyte is it's a white blood cell that's going to help to influence adaptive immunity. So remember, adaptive immunity is like how you pick up immunities to things. So like most of you guys probably had the chickenpox vaccine. I did not. They didn't have that when I was a little girl. But I had chickenpox. So that means that I'm more susceptible to shingles. You guys are not. It doesn't mean that I will get them or that you will not, but it just, changes the susceptibility there. But that's your adaptive immunity, how you come about your immunity to certain things. And of course, a huge, huge thing that they're looking into right now with coronavirus and COVID-19. So anyway, these monocytes that are, or the monocytes are making this interleukin, and then that is going to be able to bind to receptors on the same monocyte. So this is also why tumor cells are so concerning, because they are, when we talked about like cancer type cells before, we talked about how they have turned off their mitosis control. And so their division mechanisms have just been shut completely, the stopping mechanisms of cell division have been turned off completely. Sorry, I was saying that wrong. But that's what makes them uncontrolled. And so these tumor cells are doing that because they are self-stimulating. And so by doing that, the cell division, they're making their own cell division signals and telling their own cells to keep dividing. So that's a good example, or bad example, I suppose, of autocrine signaling. All right, so then we have long distance communication. And this is like hormones. That's the best way to think of it, because hormones are made at different parts of the body, but they create responses in faraway places, for example. So like right here, we have our, so there's a cytoplasm. This is the plasma membrane. This is going to be the extracellular fluid. Excuse me. So from outside of the cell, we have the signal molecule coming into this receptor protein. This receptor protein triggers a signal transduction pathway. And so all these little steps in between are changing what they need to be in order to get a certain response to happen. So for example, we had talked in class about like testosterone and progesterone, which are, sorry, they're not on here. Okay, sorry, they were somewhere else I was looking previously. But anyway, so like progesterone is created by the ovaries, but what it does is it signals the production. Oh, it was in your review book. That's what it was. So I have it written here. It's on page 152 is where it talks about the cholesterol-based, the hydrophobic signaling molecules like cholesterol-based steroid hormones can diffuse across the plasma membrane. These molecules can bind receptor site inside the cell and often travel to the nucleus where they regulate gene expression. So progesterone is one of these cholesterol-based steroid hormones. And so it's made in the ovaries, but what it does is it stimulates the, or prepares the lining of the uterus for the implantation of an ovum. And so if that ovum has been fertilized, then it has to implant in the lining of the uterus and then, make its way out in order to take hold and become another organism. So, or baby. So that's a progesterone example. Testosterone, we know testosterone is made in the testes, and it creates all sorts of changes throughout the body. If you think, we talked about how like facial hair and the development of the Adam's apple, things like that. All those changes that occur, far away from where the actual production is made. So that's how this works here. So it's all about activating a cellular response. And so here is a good number of your major endocrine glands. You know, your hypothalamus controls temperature within your entire body, things like that. Pituitary, thyroid, all these different ones here. But they are they're going to produce hormones, and those hormones are chemical signals that are transported in tissue fluids, and they're detected only by target cells. So, you know, if you're producing progesterone, it's not necessarily, I mean, it can go through other tissues, but it's only going to be detected by the target cells within the uterine lining. So yeah, there we go. This right here is just something where you could try to make your own graphic organizer based off of each of these. One of the suggestions, if we were doing this in class, we would probably print these and try to make our own graphic organizer out of it. And that's what it should look like. So if you want to take a second to, you know, look at this page, maybe try to jot something out on some notebook paper and compare it and see what you come up with. This is what you'd be doing, so, or what it should look like by the time you're done. All right. So some of these communication features, we have secreting cells, signal cells, receptor cells, or receptors, and target cell. So the secreting cell is the one that is secreting. So if you think about secreting, you're pushing something out, you're getting rid of something. So that's going to be the cell that is releasing the signal. The signal is the chemical, and another word for that is a ligand. Ligand sounds like a very important word. You should absolutely be able to use that if you were going to be talking about it, and in like a free response question or anything. So make sure that you can use that term, but just know that all it is the chemical. It is the signal. And then we have the receptor. I'm sorry if y'all can hear my dog outside the door whining. He won't sit here with me terribly for some reason. But anyway, oh, his towel is in here. Anyway, so anyway, sorry. This receptor molecule is going to be the one that is going to accept the ligand, temporarily form a receptor ligand complex where they're going to be connected. And then the target cell is the one that's going to contain that receptor. So we have the secreting cell right here. These are the ligands that are coming out. These yellow spots here would be the receptors, and then the cells that they are connected to are the target cells. So the secreting cell, in this example right here, the secreting cell can absolutely be the target cell as well. Remember, that would be one of the autocrine responses. All right, so apply these features. So of those that we just talked about, the secreting cell, target cell, ligand, and the receptor, be able to identify each one of these here. So it says insulin is secreted by beta cells of the pancreas. Once secreted, insulin travels around the body. When insulin docks with an integral protein on the membrane of a muscle cell, glucose can enter the cell. So I want you to identify the secreting cell, target cell, ligand, and the receptor. Okay, so if you want to pause that, try that. I'll give you the answer. Ready? All right, so the secreting cell is going to be the pancreatic beta cells, so the beta cells of the pancreas. Your target cell is going to be the muscle cells, because it says once secreted, insulin travels around the body when the insulin docks with an integral protein on the membrane of a muscle cell. So the muscle cell is going to be the target cell. The ligand is going to be the insulin, because that is the chemical, I'm sorry, the chemical that's going to be picked up. And then the receptor is going to be the integral protein on the muscle cell. Okay, so hopefully you guys got all that. And I hope that this simplifies things a little bit for you. And of course, as always, let me know if not. So this portion was really just on 152 and 153. About half of 153. Right below that is where it talks about homeostasis, which again should absolutely be something you guys can write about with your eyes closed at this point. And then after that, on page 154, it does go into a little bit for cell communication in plants. It's a very short portion there. And then it gets into cell division, which overall was a pretty strong test for most everyone in the class. That and genetics. So I think this week should definitely be one of the weeks that helps get your confidence up and helps get you ready for this exam. It's coming up very soon. And so we've got 2 more weeks of review. So I'm looking at my calendar up here. We got 2 more weeks of review, and then we'll have 3 more, a review week. So 3 more directed review where we're covering all the topics 2 at a time. And then we'll have 1 of just specific review strategies and things like that. And then you'll have your exam. So I need to know what your plans are again for the exam. So make sure that you get into Canvas, please. And well, I mean, you're in Canvas if you're accessing this video, but make sure that as you're in Canvas that you check out that little check-in document. I need to know what your plans are. I know College Board had sent you guys a questionnaire. I'm not sure if everyone got it, but if you checked into that parent webinar with you and your parents, then you probably heard a little bit more about that. But basically, College Board did send out a questionnaire wondering if what your plans were. And so far, only 1 student had replied to that one. And so we just kind of, like I say, trying to get a feel for who's taking the exam. But anyway, I hope you guys are staying safe and washing your hands, not touching your face. Remember all those good rules? So take care. See y'all soon. Bye.